70 of the Inner Lenses. We've got Brett, Erika, and Tim still with us. And we're going to set out on this episode, because it is dropping on the 28th of October, by saying thank you, a big heartfelt thank you to first responders the world over, because it is National First Responders Day, but we're making it international. So thank you to Brett for what you do in the fire service, and thank you to anybody else listening who has devoted themselves to that kind of thing, running towards danger when other people are quite sensibly running away.
And to
Heart-
you, and to you for your past service. So thank you.
Now I feel bad for bigging them up so much. Which brings us to the subject of knowing what conversation you're walking into. So, for our avid listener who was tuned into number 69, which is not a meal for two from your local Chinese restaurant, Brett shared that he can't say hi to a woman without them thinking there's something more to it, or thinking he thinks there's something more to it. So, uh, there is a belief that there are three main types of conversation, and that they are a growth conversation, an emotional support conversation, and a cognitive conversation. And a lot of our problems with miscommunication come from two people or more sometimes being in different conversations when the other person perhaps is seeking emotional support and you're coming from a cognitive place. That's the very common, Mars versus Venus example. But you it can filter down more broadly than that. So, joking aside, Brett wants to strike up meaningful conversation, and he is gender neutral in the sense of who he is prepared to accept they would be able to offer this conversation. And somehow he ends up in this awkward, I've got somebody. So, how do we as a group judge what type of conversation we're going into? And do we really need a piece of paper and hold it up so that the other person knows? What cues can we look at?
I do want to say that was younger ages. Like now, I can have a conversation and not have to worry that they're coming off that way when I talk to somebody, right? But when I was younger, it was more. I guess because if I was out at a bar or out somewhere where you with a bunch of people and stuff, that's just the way I guess it came off, or the environment that we were in kind of brought that to the forefront. But as I find, like, being an older individual, right, it's easier to have a conversation because you can just have a conversation, and I think everybody's at that more mature stage where, oh, I can just have a conversation, kind of like, it's different. Where I think if I go out somewhere now and put it in the same environment, I don't think it's going to be the same, met with the same reactions, right? So just to put that out there, I think there's a maturity piece that plays a role in it, um, something like that. Throwing it out there, but still wanting to stay on topic because it's interesting, right? Because we have viewers at many different ages, so I just want to be clear in that, because if somebody at a younger age is watching it, then they can kind of have a different perspective, like, oh wow, all right, and see that, and still move forward with conversations to see where they go. So this is a great conversation. I like it. Throwing it
Uh,
out there.
this is wild, right? Because you said you came into that, noticing that kind of feedback when you were younger, when whatever you just said, and in an environment, so like a bar situation where everybody is hashtag on the prowl, right? When they're at the bar kind of thing. Girl, female and male alike. It's like they're looking for somebody, the hookups are happening. That it's the general vibe when you're younger kind of thing. Not for everybody, but it's like stereotypically this is what happens. So, and you just recognize that when you were younger, you'd get that feedback, but now it's not so much. I'm noticing, I'm wondering, because we have different types of conversations, and Alec posed the question, like, what cues do we look for to inform ourselves of what conversation we're about to enter into without flat out asking, which is my always go-to first, like, whoa, what do you need from me right now? Like, what conversation are we having? I'm wondering if, even though you came off, right? Like your intention was not to like immediately pick somebody up. You didn't give information of if it was maybe on your radar and seeing how it went and possibly being open to it. Your intention might have been to just get to know somebody, but is there something about the way our energy, like what we're showing, that gives the vibe, and doesn't have to be what's coming out of your mouth, but the way that you're showing up to the conversation? Because now you're older, you're in a relationship, you're not armed with that sort of kind of vibe of I might be open to something. So you're coming at it differently, so people are receiving you differently. I'm wondering if that non-verbal, it's not in your head, but this is just how you're showing up to the conversation, might be giving off vibes to somebody else that they're reading in a different way. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but there was, even when I was with somebody, and if I was out and I would talk to somebody, it would be the same reaction. It wouldn't deviate. You know what I mean? It was the same thing, no matter if I was with somebody, not with somebody, looking for something to happen, not looking for something to happen. It was like, it was funny. It was kind of humorous. It's like, wow, is this really what's going on? Like, am I supposed to just be hooking up left and right? I mean, I don't know. I don't, it was just weird. It was something that I noticed as from a young point. You know what I mean? So, and she's giggling. What do you got?
Well, because it's taken me down a different road entirely about, and not just related specific to you. All of us, many of us, are not aware of certain attributes and things that we possess and the way that other people receive them. So we can't understand why people are receiving us in certain ways, right? So for you, not saying that you have no intention, like you're just looking to talk, but for other people that are receiving that, it's like, wait, here's this guy. He's pretty good looking. He's charming. He's this, he's that. It might be a little flirty, even though your intention isn't to say, I'm going to flirt with this girl. It just in personality and, charisma, that all of those kind of things come into play when you're having conversation. So you're saying you might not be aware. And I'm wondering how, if any of the rest of us are not aware of certain things that we have, or give ourselves acknowledgement of who we are and play it down, so we can't understand why people are like, what? I'm just trying to talk to you. What's the problem here? And it's like, there's no problem, but you're coming off with this kind of this vibe, this energy, this appeal that you don't give credit to yourself for. And I'm sure we have other people here that can comment on if they recognize that in themselves as well, and how that flavors a conversation. Anyone? Bueller?
I was just waiting to see if Tim was going, and now he is.
This is a fascinating topic. There's so much nuance in what you're both saying, I think, in this. I mean, historically, societies have always had some sort of system in place to let people know if you're on the market or not, right? And island culture, it's what side of the head is your flower on, right? In more local Amish communities, if you're married, you don't have a beard, right? I mean, there's the joke of I'm chasing tail, right? Supposedly comes from women back in the older days would wear raccoon tails or wear squirrel tails on their belt, so people knew that they were single, right? And it's kind of funny when you go to the local Renaissance fairs here. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, right? But these stories now, at least the people when they go to those Renaissance fairs, they act in that sense, right? If you see somebody there who's got a tail hanging on them, that's a sign you're single or something, and open. And even my parents who live down in Florida in the villages, which always gets the fun reputation, there's the conversation about having the different colored loofahs on your golf carts and your cars, right? So there's always been something that kind of designates, is this person approachable or not? Are they at that stage? Are they not? Are they mourning? Are they not, based on the color they wear? They even created social situations where it's like, okay, we have this ball so the young people can get to know each other, but it would be inappropriate if necessarily any older people dance with anybody besides their already designated spouses, right? It's not so simple now. And a part of that, I don't want to say, I'm not trying to blame like the breakdown of societal rules or anything, but you could even get it broken down to if I never grew up with a good man in the house, a father figure of some sort, I don't know actually when somebody like Brett comes up to speak to me, if this person is just being a gentleman or if they are trying to pose as a gentleman so that my guard becomes down, I become somehow daddy issued all over again, and suddenly I'm there. And it really does bring light that hookup culture mentality is so shallow. It is just so, I think there actually is a study that within the first number of seconds, somebody will know if they will sleep with you or not. There have been studies on that. And lastly, I suppose where I'm going with that is the level of maturity. Brett, you brought up maturity at the start of your comments. And I think sometimes when you watch the interplay between people, you can tell where the maturity falls by, are they engaging the conversation because they're even subconsciously, are they primarily trying to see how other people perceive them or receive them? So I'm just going to keep talking. I'm just going to keep batting my eyes. I'm just going to keep doing these things because my main focus is, are people liking me? And is this how I can figure that out? Versus, I guess I would classify a more mature person as perfectly content receiving other people and listening to them. How do you carry yourself? How can I actually have a meaningful conversation with you? Or is it all surface level stuff? Does it quickly jump to, I have to put up these boundaries? One time I was out, my brother-in-law, before he got married, I'll tell you this, and then Alec, you go. My brother-in-law's bachelor party, I was one of two guys who were married. Okay. So no fun, first off, not no fun in the sense that everywhere they went were places that had been just behind me, right? That I don't care about going to the bars and the clubs and everything else like that. So kind of bored for the most part, right? But I remember me and the other married guy, we would always kind of find ourselves in the back of the room, just sitting, kind of at a table waiting for everybody else to want to pick up and go to the next bar. And I remember there was a group of girls dancing kind of nearby to the table, and the girls started yelling at the other married guy because he kind of stretched or something, and they thought he was trying to touch them or something like that. And he just pointed at his wedding ring, because he can't hear it. But she then screamed, she goes, "What does that matter?" And so even the societal norm of this doesn't, in their minds doesn't mean anything, which was like, okay, so you must have had some experiences here where the ring has not mattered or something. And that's just where you are. But if you weren't married and if you found him attractive, would you care if he had kind of stretched and done this? Would you have him, so there was something happening with her in that situation. So a lot of those societal norms have shifted and changed. And I think it's a lot more chaotic now than it used to be.
I'm was reminded by the movie Logan's Run. And, most people will probably, if they even are familiar with that, think about the fact that they were terminated by their government at the age of 30 because they didn't have enough space. But in the movie, the original movie, they had what I am convinced was the motivation to create Tinder. If you logged into it and you were swiping through, then you'd get like a hologram of that person, and you could hit the screen, and they would know to come to your room or whatever, your accommodation. And I don't think Tinder is a huge step away from that. You know, it's like swiping, I don't know, you swipe one way or the other. I've never used Tinder, but the point is, they, you know, back in the day, Plenty of Fish dating site was renowned for just being a kind of swingers / hookup thing. But because of the international audience, Tim, I need to come back to you to explain about loofahs and golf carts. But at some point, somebody has decided that this loofah sheath on it's like a prosthetic, a prophylactic on the end of a golf club, means something. So even within that, you know, at what point did somebody turn around and say, I'm going to put a blue thing on the end of my golf club, and women will know that that means I'm available? What the fuck? Who came up with that idea, and how has it been circulated? Because I didn't get the memo.
Well, it's pineapples mean something also, but we'll get into that somewhere else. That's the Inner Lenses After Dark conversation. We can do that. What I'm interested in is what I'm hearing, because this is a lot of symbolism, right? Like the loafers, the this, the that, things that we wear that we don't have to communicate, you know, something about us. So I'm wondering what's more important here? Like, I don't think we give enough space and enough honor to nonverbal communication. Like I'm starting to feel like the nonverbal part of our communication is more important, if not just as important, than the actual words we say. It's everything else that leads up to it, right? Our facial expression, our body, the way we come into the conversation. If we're standing there listening to somebody like that, like all the nonverbal stuff, I think is not given enough presence to, like, to really think about this before you actually start speaking.
And I think understanding the difference too between not posturing, right, and authentic nonverbal communication, because we live in a culture where everybody's trying to posture in some way, posting certain things, have to have the black square on your profile thing, right? Because that means this, have to have the rainbow in the month of June around your picture because that means this. When I even go out, I've seen 8-year-olds with pride and trans flag t-shirts on. Okay. They don't dress themselves. I can almost promise you half the children don't do that, which means it's a conscious choice most of the time by the parents to have bought it in the first place, but then to possibly dress it. But there's a statement almost in much of what we try to do. And is it authentic, or is it a manufactured non-verbal, right? The body language, how much of it's genuine is something I think makes it much more complicated right now.
What worries me somewhat about this is that consciously or unconsciously, we seem to have gone back to a place where symbols could be interpreted by somebody. And you know, this is not a million miles away from your rape, stranger rape. You know, oh, she was dressed up, you know, she put makeup on, she was asking for it. No, you know, a friend of mine quite rightly says, you don't just wait for consent. How about enthusiasm? This is not, I'm going to get on a soapbox here. It is not acceptable for somebody to think that somebody is available or somebody has perhaps a leaning. You know, putting a kid in a certain piece of clothing that suggests that they are available sexually. I'm not saying that's what trans or anything does, but it is talking about a choice that that person is completely unaware of. And it takes us into very difficult territory from my perspective. There's enough confusion in communication you know, we kind of strayed from how do we know what conversation we're in to, you know, I could go on a golfing holiday in Florida, completely oblivious to all this, and have me pineapple on the wrong side of my golf cart.
Oh boy, you would have a fun time. If that's what
I will meet you down there, okay? And don't worry, we'll provide you with the proper attire for when
you'll
you
have
go
the proper
golfing with us.
colors, proper color loofah that you need. You'll be all set up. Right side, wrong side, upside down or not. It's all good.
Okay.
We got you. Don't worry.
So
We're gonna be wrapping up this
Yeah.
episode soon, but so what I want to say is what I'm hearing, going back to what we started with about Brett, you know, having noticed this experience and where we're ending up here. My main takeaway from this is that how about we practice no assumptions, right? When we're having conversations with people, and just be open to the fucking conversation for what it's presenting to you, and stop creating stories around what you think is happening before it's actually there before you to see, right? No assumptions, no assumption conversations. I'm going to start a new movement. How's that? Hashtag no assumption combos. Next, anyone else? Closing thoughts.
Tim,
I don't know.
Oh, go on, Brett.
I was going to say, I really enjoy conversations because you never know what you're going to learn from somebody or what you can actually offer somebody within that short time of a conversation, whether it's short, long, or whatever it may be. It's more about, am I getting something from this conversation, or are they getting something from this conversation? Like there's an exchange in every conversation. You know, if somebody's having a bad day and you started having a conversation with them, even if it was short, you can shift that whole day with that small conversation, depending upon what was said and what was spoken, right? So we're so wrapped up in our everyday fast-paced life that we're forgetting to just live in those little gaps of the moments, and that's the happiness that we hold on to, right? And that's the moments that make our day good, or and aware of our day going on, because time is going to whip by and you're going to turn around and you'll be like, where'd my life go? Oh my God, I'm XYZ age. It's holding on to those moments and those little conversations and the giggles and the laughs, and then going your way, right? And you don't know what comes from that small conversation, right? And if you see that person again, I don't know. I think there's a missing piece, that the connection piece for people, that is really important, that we lose in the running around in the fast pace, right? That little bit of connection in our fast pace could make our day that shift that somebody may need, right? Including myself. So I don't know, just dropping that on the way out. And yeah, Tim, you were saying.
Yeah, that echoes. I'm starting to wonder now, after this conversation has progressed as it has, is, you know, if we could all become a little bit more comfortable going a little bit further below the surface in conversation, if we would then start to develop, we could let down our guard a little bit more, because we would actually start to recognize more and more people are actually people. They're not agendas, and they're not, you know, a one-trick pony. You got one thing on their mind, kind of things. And so I also wonder, why are we closed off from going below any further than the surface? Are we ourselves afraid? Do we ourselves think we don't have that much to offer in the conversation? Maybe when we get to know somebody, then I can be disappointed. So maybe if I don't want to be disappointed or tricked or taken advantage of, I just don't get to know people, or all I ever do is see them and engage with them on a surface level. Because I feel like if you have one person in your life, say your partner, and they're the only person you open up to, I don't think that's healthy. right? I just don't. If that's the only person, that's codependency. You're the only person possibly I can ever cry in front of or share my thoughts with. But I don't know if that's necessarily true, right? I think you can have that. And that's where you can start to have multiple friends in different places and you can make those connections. And once you do that, you can trust the stranger walking down the grocery aisle better than maybe if you're so afraid of everybody because you start to see life differently. So I suppose if I gave a lesson or a takeaway, it might be that is what's holding us back from doing that, and the broader consequences of not doing that on society by at large, and all the mental health stuff we have these days, and all the anxiety, and all the different things that we're hearing, all these fears that then turn and motivate us to double down in other areas of how we act and behave. They're all connected, and maybe it could just be resolved by more habitual, slightly deeper conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, we are not our ideologies or our emotions, and we are often judging or judged by that perception. He's this type of person or that type of person, without ever going deeper. And if we don't experiment with deeper, then people don't develop character and maturity in their deeper self, because it's never comes up. No one's ever asked, do you have more about you? I'm going to go and get some tinned pineapple rings and make some spectacles out of them, which I'll be wearing for the start of our next episode. I don't know what that will bring to me in the meantime. Probably just a sticky nose and a wasp sting. But we invite you back to join us for that one. And until then, cheerio.